interview with us. And for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Born and raised in Boston.
Mhm.
Been working professionally for 3 decades or more. Primarily in the graphic design, illustration field. I did extensive work in mainstream comics. Not animation, but like the major publishers like Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
And then major independent publishers.
Mm-hmm.
And those are sort of like, in some instances, lesser known, like Dark Horse Comics, for example, or Chaos Comics, or, but everybody identifies Marvel and DC as like the top two. So I've done extensive work for both of those companies.
Cool.
And then a whole host of independent projects and creative properties.
Cool. To piggyback off of what you said about Marvel and DC,
Yeah.
when I was doing my research, it looks like, of course, your career spans 2 decades, and you worked with Marvel and DC. A question I have for you is, how has the industry evolved over the years, and what changes have you found most impactful on your work as an illustrator and a creator?
If I could add a layer to that, I'd like to approach that question or try to answer that question from the aspect or point of view of black creators. And I think the landscape is much more, I think it's more, the entrepreneurial spirit is stronger in a lot of the younger generation. There are certain things that weren't available to us when I was breaking in the industry in terms of like the advent of, or the advancement of technology and how that enhances what we do. We were just talking before we started rolling about the creative process and how my breakdown for specific pieces is. And it's a traditional comic book approach or format where there's a penciler, there's an inker, there's a colorist. So in comic books that are made for monthly consumption, those jobs are broken up and delegated to specific artists. And then there's a case where somebody might do all of that artwork themselves. So for these pieces in the background, for example, those are pieces I did all the artwork myself. So, but how the industry has changed or evolved, I think the entrepreneurial spirit is stronger than ever. I think the understanding that, or the fascination of working on established properties that are beloved the world over, like Batman or Spider-Man, that's like a goal, you know, when you're young and you aspire to do this kind of work. But then you work in the field and you get to the point where, you know, how much of my time am I really going to invest in somebody else's property before I redirect that attention or that focus on myself. So it's a balancing act, I think. You want to balance how much you devote to pre-existing property that you really have no ownership in, and then balance that with doing it for yourself, because it's important to have that balance and to devote as much time in yourself as you do to others.
Thank you. That's amazing. One of the questions, and I'm gonna kind of step away from the art a little bit,
All right.
but go back into it. Can you talk about how family, especially the relationship you have with your dad, shaped your path as an artist?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. I think family is everything. I got an incredible amount of support from my family. And not just my father, excuse me. My uncle, his brother, was a renowned ceramist. My uncle on my mother's side of the family was a drawing instructor. He taught at RISD. And then just close proximity, just people that my parents had relationships with from the community that I received introduction from through those relationships, like Paul Goodnight, for example, like Napoleon Jones Henderson, like Nelson Stevens, Renee Neblett, Barbara Ward, the list go on and on. These are people that proved to me that I could do something cool. I had these abilities and to create And I didn't know that I was exceptional until somebody told me.
Yeah.
I just figured everybody else grew up the same way I did, that had these abilities to do things.
Yeah.
But it were those people that I met at such a very young age. So both parents saw that spark, or that curiosity within me, and then it was their decision to introduce me to these, amazing artists from the community.
Yeah.
So that family element, I think it's just crossed over into that. But my father specifically was very supportive. He was also very hard on me too. He didn't get no free ride. I mean, he's a very accomplished. He's very respected at the oldest black-owned firm, architectural firm in his part of the country. He was discouraged. Now, he wasn't discouraged, but there were forces that were trying to discourage him from pursuing a career in that area, especially in Boston, Massachusetts, of all places.
Yeah.
And he was able to flourish.
Yeah. Yeah. He's created some incredible things. Can you maybe talk to what he actually was a part of creating in our community, because some people don't actually know?
Oh, well, Rebel Street Station, Roxbury Community College, police headquarters. His beginnings were tenant and community housing. He did a lot of interior structural things before kind of evolving into the larger scale work. He did the Harriet Tubman House, the ill-fated Harriet Tubman House.
Yeah.
But I remember being at the groundbreaking for that as a little boy, not knowing what I was doing there. What was all this dirt and rock and, but that was the beautiful thing about him, excuse me, in our relationship, where he was always accessible to me, and he always kind of wanted to have me around.
Yeah.
So how does that energy not brush off or rub off on you, even if you're not, as a young boy, not consciously aware of what's going on or all the specifics of what's going on?
Yeah.
But he always seemed like he wanted me near him.
Yeah.
So I'm eternally grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because that I was able to have those experiences sort of just become part of my way of thinking, and help form and shape the kind of artist so when it comes time to decide what kind of career path you want to go down, or area of art you want to pursue, you just have this richness and knowledge of so many other things.
Yeah.
That I believe can only enhance, or have only enhanced, the work that I do, or that I'm recognized for.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, because, my pops always says, energy, it never dissipates, it just moves on.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you say that, because
energy
right.
and frequencies.
Yeah. It stays with you, and then you pass it along to somebody else. I'm pretty sure people that see this, like a young, person in our community is gonna say, Rob is doing this.
Well, that's the hope.
Yeah.
That's the hope, and I think, when I was I'm a graduate of the School of Museum of Fine Arts. So I was a graphic design and illustration major at a decidedly fine arts school. So they're like, how does that work? And I said, well, that was deliberate, because I felt that the graphic design and illustration work that I was going to be producing would be richer with all of the other disciplines that I was melding into the graphic design sensibility. Now, I did do the work. I did advertising work. I did stuff for Digitas and Hill Holiday and things like that. So, but I felt like that I had an edge that somebody wouldn't have going to a school like a RISD or a Parsons or a more design-based. And who knows if I was right or not. I just had opportunities
that
came my way that I think that were part and parcel of that kind of thinking, you know, and trying to take advantage of everything that was sort of at my disposal.
One of the things, and for people that have not seen this, can you talk to us about that monumental exhibit that happened a few years back that you were involved in at the MFA with Pro-Black and a bunch of other talented folks? Please talk to us a little bit more about that.
Okay. I'd be glad to.
Yeah, great.
A lot of history made, man.
Yeah.
A lot of history made. Right off top, to my understanding, it was the first time that the MFA offered a residency to local artists. First time Jean-Michel Basquiat was exhibited at the MFA. And I think it was smart, but also on the part of the curators and MFA staff to put Basquiat's name on top of it to get the attention.
Yeah.
But the exhibit really shined a light on the people that were there.
Yeah.
At the beginning of that post-'80s movement. So Basquiat grabbed everybody's attention because everybody identifies with Basquiat, they're familiar with him. But then it also shined a light on his contemporaries, like Lady Pink, like Futura 2000, or Futura, Ramel Z, A1, Keith Haring, list go on and on. And that history is important. I'm a child of hip-hop. Hip-hop culture is very important. That's one of the things that kind of forms and shapes my character as an artist. It's something that is infused in everything that I do, from teaching to the physical art that I produce.
Yeah.
So being given the opportunity to participate in that exhibit was mind-blowing to me. I was a student of most of these artists, you know, being so captivated by hip-hop. My first introduction to it, I must have been like 12 or 13 years old before I really knew what hip-hop was.
Yeah.
I was receiving it in like little snippets. Like I would see certain aspects of the culture and didn't know what to connect it to until I knew what to connect it to, until it was presented to the world as this collective kind of thing. Like there were other aspects of it that made it the whole that it was. So that completely took over my life as a young man.
Yeah.
So, like I said, to be given the opportunity to participate in something like this sort of brought it full circle, and then to be represented alongside all of those pioneers and foundational artists that are really responsible for moving the culture forward was a huge deal for me. Having it at the MFA, being a graduate of the school right across the street, amazing. And then 3 of the pieces, I did pieces. I was sort of wrestling with how I wanted to have my contribution come across. So I wanted to stay within my wheelhouse, if you will, and still produce work that I'm recognized for, that people recognize me for. So I didn't want to stray too far from what I'm known for. But then I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to try to stretch and push boundaries a little bit.
Yeah.
So I wanted to produce work that was sort of in a collage kind of style, but I wanted to draw everything. I didn't want to do like traditional collage approach.
Yeah, cut out things.
But I felt in doing that, I can sort of encompass a lot of different elements in a not so traditional way that would come across to the viewer, and they would I felt the need to educate on the one hand, but provide enough information where it would be conversation starting. So I felt like I hit the mark with each piece. But then the other part of that was to honor the artists that I was representing in each individual piece and shine a light on their contributions to the culture. And I think I hit the mark with that too.
Yeah.
The biggest thrill was the closing reception, where a lot of the artists, those who were still living, were invited to come, and it was just us in the MFA. You know, it was private. Charlie Ahern was there, the director of seminal movie Wild Style, which, for all intents and purposes, is hip hop's introduction to the world.
Yeah. Yep.
In 1983, he was there. Futura was there. Lady Pink was there. Roger Gassman was there. One of the curators of Beyond the Streets, ongoing exhibit that really shines a light on all the things that we're talking about. So to be able to sit in front of that section of the exhibit and talk to Futura and have him see those aspects that I knew he would get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to be able to talk about it, and for him to be able to co-sign certain aspects of those of the approach, and the same thing with Lady Pink.
Yeah.
You know, Fab Five Freddy also.
Yeah.
Was there, you know? So it was just a real, it was sort of confirmation that not only is this important, but it's also relevant, and it kind of opens the door now. Yeah. You know, to more efforts. Yeah. And I think more efforts like that need to happen, so that people really have a solid understanding of the significance of the culture. Yeah. That's how anything evolves.
I mean, I was blown away before the show went up. Yeah. Because they were talking about the show going up. They had, you know, the large banners that were in front of. Yeah. They didn't put them up yet, but they had them in these crates at the back. The museum was about to close. Me and my wife were, and I was walking by and they were opening them up. I was like, what in the world? Yeah. Because, you know, they were talking about it, and I had no idea.
That was presented to me as a total surprise.
Yeah, and they were.
It's at the end of a Zoom meeting. Yeah. Because we were all sort of quarantining or whatever.
Yeah.
It was right in the thralls of COVID. So we were all in our homes. So most of our correspondence or meetings or communication was via Zoom. Yeah. So it was the end of a Zoom with MFA staff. And they just had a mock-up of it. It wasn't a thing yet. So I was just like, what the hell is that? And I'm seeing my artwork on the front of the MFA. And then I later found out that was the first time a local artist had ever had their work displayed in that way on the front to be connected and combined with a major exhibition at the same time.
Yeah, it was incredible. I'll never forget that.
A lot of firsts, man. Yeah. I'm just eternally grateful. But I also, my feeling, and I believe this, is that I'm representative of an era that is sort of like that first generation of hip-hop. By extension, you know, we give all the props to New York, of course. That's the birthplace. But we have such significant contributions being here from Boston and people of my era, my age. So when the work went up, I felt like it was, when the banners went up specifically, I felt like it was representing not just me and my work, but everybody who was doing what I was doing at that time. Yeah. So it's my work technically, but it spoke for all of us. You know, to sort of break that boundary. Yeah. Or get past that stigma of why this is not, or at one point was not considered real art, or whatever. Yeah. You know, that people attach to it. You know, it just felt like a collective, like, okay, finally. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I remember my wife and I, we were walking back to our car when we came out of the exhibit. And I remember there was a young African-American, a boy, he must have been 9, 10, and he was with his mom, and he looked up at the banner and he said, Mom, is this our museum now? And I was blown away.
No.
Yes, I was blown. And what it did was...
There it is.
Yeah. It's why we do this.
Yes.
You know, it's why we do it. Well, for them.
Well, um, the companion to it was separate but still connected, was the mural project that I worked on with Rob Gibbs.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not taking any credit for any of those beautiful murals. I mean, Gibbs did that all on his own. But the idea behind that was to co-curate a collective effort to infuse the younger generation, or to incorporate the younger generation in cultivating hip-hop, hip-hop culture.
Yeah.
And it's like I always say, and any teacher, I believe, feels this same way. In order for something to evolve, you've got to get the younger generation turned on and excited and inspired, so that they can, have the same enthusiasm, or close, or just the inspiration that you did.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, then, it has to evolve beyond just our contributions. It has to take new life. And that's, young people are always not the arbiters, but they're responsible for ushering in the trends. And
they're the new.
Dictating what's cool and what's not.
Yeah.
They've always done that.
Yeah.
Hip-hop culture in and of itself was created out of that same energy.
Yep.
Young people, 11, 12, 13 years old.
Yep.
And then Pro Black and myself, we participated in a documentary that kind of shined a light on our collaboration. Him with the mural, where it involved Artists for Humanity kids and Madison Park High kids, and then me by extension, with the work that I was doing in the MFA, that was directly connected to the exhibit. And just when you think about graffiti at its root, kids thought up this idea to put their artwork on the side of a subway train.
Yeah.
Kids figured that out. To me, that's genius. I mean, a kid is saying, what's the best way and most effective way that I can have my artwork be seen by millions of people in one day?
Yeah.
They put it on the side of a freaking subway train. So when it leaves that yard in the morning and comes back at night, how many millions of people in New York City have seen it, from the elevated line to in the individual stations? Kids thought of that, man. Kids thought of that.
Yeah. So looking ahead,
Yes.
what projects or aspirations do you have for the future, both in your personal, artistic endeavors and in contributing to a broader comic book or creative communities?
I think it's important that as creatives and artists that we don't limit ourselves. If there's something that we want to explore, gather the right information or the proper information, and just do it, man. I mean, it's figure it out and do it. That's kind of where I'm at now. There's a few things I'm involved in that I'm sort of apprehensive about sharing because they're kind of in the beginning stages. But I've always had a connection with music, whether that's been straightforward album cover art and design for hip-hop artists, which I've done. I've got a lot of relationships with people in hip-hop. I've done work with labels, record labels. So all of that's part of my background, but just doing it in a different way. And that's where I will refrain from providing specifics.
Oh yeah.
But it's all connected if you think about it. What we do is so interconnected. I had an exhibit that sort of fused comic books and hip hop culture because it's so intrinsic. So many of the MCs in rap music, they sort of adopt or co-opt comic book characters or names blatantly, like DJ Green Lantern, DJ Clark Kent. I mean, come on. So it's like that marriage has always been there. So it's a sensibility that I'm drawing from. But then the other part is just staying true to who we are as creatives and continuing to push the boundaries of what we do and continue to explore, because we have to also evolve.
Yeah.
And I think by being attached to that younger generation, they keep us fresh. They keep us inspired. I know that's how it is for me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I see these, I told Paul earlier in an interview that when I go, I'm involved with Boston Arts Academy, Mount Olive High School, and I see the things that these kids are doing, and I'm like,
it's amazing.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I would like to use that color palette, or you did what with what? Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, so any of these opportunities that come our way where we can do that, where we can get the younger generation involved,
Yep.
Because we benefit from it too. We need to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Well, I guess that is it. I appreciate you, my brother. Thank you so much. I had more questions, but we've run out of time. And
all right.
Thank you. My man. Thank you.